Yes, I'm just going to read Gróga Cloch with you, just go through it in English, in Leilge agus Berle. So starting with the title on the cover, Gróga Cloch by Pádraig Branach. Pádraig Branach wrote this book in the late 80s and it was published in 1990 by Chptr Choranta. It's a limited company, so it's Cólacht Choranta. And the cover, the Clúdach, was designed by Evan, or made by Evan O Muirisa. And then the Jera was the design by Michal O'Conneille and Josevine Ní Conneille. So the book is dedicated to my Yerarcha, his brothers, agus my Jerfurcha, his sisters, and he has, I think, Dehnur, 10, Sean, Seamus, Liam, Taig, Martin, the Gerarcha, and the Jerfurcha are Anya, Peggy, Philomena, Trace, agus Aileen. Right, so he has a number of other books at this period and many afterwards. These books are short stories and histories, so Banan Ionar, Buked Pochin on Lanun, de Heluchora Jera, Lily agus Frech, and a history of my Cullen, which is the Brak Gaeltacht in Caherna Galive, and he wrote a Toishk agus Tourishk, which is what you'd often write about someone like a sort of obituary or a report telling of that which happened in their life. But here, my Cullen, star anach na canter beidir na taunacha and the tímana being like bursts of emotional energy from one's heart. Gróga Cloch. Grog is usually thought of as a stack of turf, but here it's Gróga Cloch, so it's sort of cruach or stack of some kind. We have now the character Macdara on the first page of the novel, on the first page of the first chapter, Capital Ahain. We meet Macdara, who is a Buchel, who lives in Galway. He lives in perhaps Moycullen before it was developed. It's not clear yet where. And we're listening, or Macdara is hearing something. He heard in the Drishacha, the Tom Drishachi, the bushes there, he hears something. So he's out in nature, and we meet Macdara hearing something. So he heard a Tormon Biog there, and he went to investigate because he wasn't sure what was making the noise. A Frankach or Anvi Biog or Ain. It wasn't clear. Was it a bird, a Frankach or an Anvi Biog? So this is a special day in Macdara's life. It's a law audit, and we learned that his brother Donal, Hui Donal, the Gerard ba Hinne Nae, so he's a brother that's older than he is going to Sassana this morning on Bajin Shane. Now, this will leave Macdara, the oldest in the house, Satach, Vishe Shanarid, so this he understood, and it was his mother who brought Donal to the station, Huyishtach against station, and they went Eran Mus. But the father, we're learning, did not go because he says that he had a leshgale, that he didn't bring Donal down because he was cruog, gnochach, chun, and villineer le moil karke. So he had to bring down the oats used to make letse or prashach to the mullen to be milled. So he was not able to go. Now, in case you think he's cold, we learned that this sort of avoidance of this very emotional scene was because he had Wegness Moore, the father had, and Dobron, because Donal, the older brother, was leaving for Sassana. So Vishe Rate Egele Macdara, and it was said to Macdara, the buchel of the story, to go up and co-arav the behi in the shliv. So he was up counting the animals up in the behi, the beasts up in the field. So, what would he do now? Was the question on the lad's mind as he's counting the sheep. He's thinking about his life and now the changes in his household. And he's moldadorach there an slieve a bisha. And he's lambering around moldadorach. And the behi, he has them counted. And now that they're counted, he's thinking about the distance his mother is from the home. So now he's doing other calculations and he's thinking that Aridve Sayer, that he'd be free now, and that he had the day worked out to himself, that he might go down and maybe do a bit more work, or better. Um, he thought again that himself now that he would be the older one. So his mind is filled with these kinds of thoughts of like, what now? And he's in a state of wagness himself and imni, thinking about the whole thing. So what would he do but go down to the river? So sort of like Huckleberry Finn, he decides that he's going to get his Voyache, Duan, Kalte, and Shin. Um, maybe he could get a lost hook down there. Like he hasn't a hook available, so he'd have to go down to the river and hope he'd find a stray Duan that someone else had left, maybe. Dá gurach sé piece of shrangan there. And if you were to put a bit of shrangan, a bit of string, and a paste on the Duan, he'd be able to bearach or catch a brach or bradon. A brack is a trout, and a bradon is a salmon. Kavis nach merach sé radon. So he's actually getting quite hopeful that he might actually catch a salmon. So he goes down and makes the long enough journey down Soch Fada to the Awin and down these slopes, the Fauna, and he's going down there and he's worrying about the tilta, and the tiltas are the floods that might have been there, he was thinking, in Kapu, because of the Vashtach war in Ye. So there was a big Vashtach war yesterday, so maybe it'd be flooded, so rains. And he was hoping that he wouldn't see nach Vekach, an Tirna no an Van Tirna, that they wouldn't see him. Now they wouldn't say much. They wouldn't. It would be little they would say. A Djerfadish lesh with him, whatever about it at all. Pay or behe. Nach cordo ve sanacharoshe, and it wouldn't be right for him to be in that place that he was in, because that they would say much about it. He didn't think that they might, because they were maybe not as horrible as you might think Tierna and Avan Tierna would be. But eske fanacht as a malach, so it'd be easy to wait out of their way, orhu, uh, astu, from them, but anyway. But ye an kilhen and fatish bawoer. And he's now talking about going down to the river. He thinks he can avoid the owners of the river. How someone could own a river is beyond me. But anyway, he sees the quill, or he's thinking about the quill, the cran, and that there's fatish mo lawn anvehe. So because it's filled the quill with anvehe, there's fatish bewaer. Agus ní ravé go raibh fatish rov an it. So it wasn't the irarua rov an madarua. No, the and it wasn't before the madarua, the shunach, the fox, and it wasn't even before the brach, rav an mrach, the badger. So it wasn't the Uraru, the Shunach, or the Broch that put Fatis air. Near Vodze, it is probable that the Mer Sheshnamui and Trasha, it is not, is probable or not, that probably not that it that would he would put outside this time, that it was the Discon, the Gran Ard. There's the discon coming from the crown high above his head. There's some discon or sort of fochram. Or he mentions fochram earlier. He talks about he heard a tormon before, and he has the sense of the sounds in the area, maybe frightening him a bit. And here we are. He's talking about it's not these animals that are put the fear to him. It's rather the canran na grin, na gran, na canran na gran. So canran is sort of kaint gerenach os ishel. So it's a sort of banran, a sort of gossipy, windy, sharp, low talk from the trees. Canran na gran. That's what's scaring him about the forest. Le lochne with these shille bioglihe, these little breezes. They would put them canran. So it would take but a lochne or a little glee to canran the trees to make them whispery like that. And they would be a canran gan lochne So even they would be even without canran or lochne no glihe, they'd be doing this canran business. They kolóder le dinne eigen ní sinne na near vistilesh. So he didn't mind a bit of he wouldn't mind a bit of kolóder le people ní sinne na but umi oer ag don lis ege I hen hiacht trid na kid. So he was thinking about he's sort of missing his brother Donald and their trips maybe down to the Owen, and now he's thinking it'd be nice to have a bit of kolóder in his wegness and fatis or imni. So so he's thinking about like if I do go down to the river, will there be people below his egisgracht? And he's wondering, be ba yochi gomer. So he this is the grammatical so it'd be like ba yochi ba yochi gomer. It would be probable dochi that would be uh, people down there egisgracht. By dochie gomer na hisgeracht bradanan, that there would be iskeri, fishermen of salmon bradan down there in there. But ye negoro argedachu na dinishin, and that they'd have a bit of money also because chussen shake your arged iskerach the yana the high bradan, because there's a lot of money to be made from salmon fishing. Bine and thaw ro an tirna wakefield agus a vir ho gear. So there's Gair ag Fara, the Tirna Wakefield, the name of the people that own the area, and the Muir, who is the Commodity on Kongvoil. He's the major steward of the area. And ma vi iskeri ag iskacht vechan Muir in Endilo. And if there was iskeri iskeracht, it would be the Muir who'd be in tandem with them in Endilo if there were any Iskari down there. Bulgaria go more on Muir na an Tirna. So it's the Muir, ironically, perhaps, that was more Gera, more sharp in his looking at Farah on the Kongval, the estates of the Tirna, than maybe the Tirna himself. Moramech Iskari an Ivech an Muir Rogerov. And he's saying Macdara knows this Muir, and it's really, he's only this way, really. Because there's fishermen there, and if they weren't there, Moramech iskri on Nivech, he wouldn't be so ger of. However, Hugoch she, he would put cad, he would grant permission do to Macdara Amenta sometimes Belti bioga iskerachta yana iglud kulradach, and this she muir, the commodity, the fella who works for the Tirna, would sometimes give him the chances, the little bouts, or drase bioga iskerachta yana, to go down fishing in the cover, igluj kulradach, the private kulradach. You hear older fellas talking about a kind of gulrods. It's sort of like to talk in the back, to sort of talk in a sort of private manner. So yeah, that's the first bit. It's of Gróga Cloch. I'll just throw this old camera on again and go on through it, show you some of the notes that I've made, and remind anyone that wants to read with us, Beimwij ag lev in Nailge Awan, agus ag kaint in Nailge Awan, Fuin Lachani Marsha as Lauer Marsha, de Cadian Beimwij ag lev an Bel Bocht Glorella. So urban gaeltacht na cachracha bei fogri cwr sŵs agus bei sydd ffael drif agus bei ffael ti môr, môr I caliigi a bhélinn ag léamh le chéile. Gur míle maithagí, slán.